You ever see a moment so unbelievable you have to rub your eyes to be sure it's real? Because that's exactly what happened when federal agents, yes, actual FBI and postal inspectors, showed up on our quiet suburban street to question our HOA president, Karen. There she was, standing on her front lawn in her bright pink blazer, yelling about community rules, while two agents carefully collected the stack of Amazon boxes piled on her porch. Neighbors stood frozen, some filmed from behind their hedges, and me, I was just standing there, coffee in hand, watching it all unfold, because those boxes were mine. They weren't just any packages either. Inside them were classified government materials that Karen had taken off my porch. That's when the agents told her the words she never expected to hear. Ma'am, tampering with federal mail, especially containing restricted documents, is a serious offense. Yeah, that's how far Karen's pettiness went. But to understand how a woman obsessed with trash can placement ended up in an FBI investigation, we need to go back 3 weeks. Before I continue, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Because you're about to see how one HOA's neighborhood watch turned into a federal case. When I first moved into Maplewood Estates, I thought I'd finally found peace. Neatly trimmed lawns, pastel houses, the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. It looked like something straight off a real estate brochure. I work from home as a systems contractor, mostly federal logistics, quiet, detail-oriented work, the kind that needs focus and reliable mail delivery. That was until I met her, Karen Blake, the self-appointed eyes and ears of the HOA. You couldn't miss her. Early 30s, sharp blonde bob, always wearing something bright, like a walking highlighter. And her voice, you could hear her suggestions even with the windows closed. The first encounter came on my second week. I was rolling my trash bin back in when she appeared out of nowhere, clipboard in hand. Per HOA Section 3B, bins have to be stored behind the fence, not by the garage, she said, sharply. Got it, I'll move it. We have standards here, Ethan, she added, smirking. Some of us like to keep the community looking respectable. I smiled, nodded, and moved the bin. But I should have realized, for Karen, that wasn't about rules, it was about control. Over the next week, I caught her hovering by my mailbox, taking photos of my lawn, and once literally measuring my grass. It was weird, but harmless. At least I thought it was. Then, one morning, I noticed something strange. My delivery notification said, "Package delivered," but my porch was empty. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was delayed. Maybe a mix-up. But then it happened again and again. I remember looking out the window that third time and seeing a familiar pink blazer walking away from my porch holding one of my boxes. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because if Karen was going to play this game, I was going to play smarter. And that's how the trash can lady became the center of a federal investigation.
It started small, just enough to be annoying, but not enough to take seriously. A petty rule here, a warning there. Karen called it maintaining neighborhood standards. I called it harassment with a smile. A week after the trash can incident, I got my first written notice from the HOA. It was slipped under my doormat, printed in bold letters. Violation. Mailbox flag must remain in the down position unless outgoing mail is present. Apparently, Karen had taken a picture of my raised flag at 10 p.m. and filed a formal complaint. I laughed it off, but then came the second strike. 2 days later, she stopped me as I was mowing my lawn. "You can't mow that short," she said, waving her clipboard again. "The HOA recommends a minimum of 2.5 inches. It prevents browning." "I'll keep that in mind," I told her. "You should. Last guy who ignored that got a citation," she replied, flashing a fake smile. That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't just nosy, she was territorial. Every inch of grass, every porch light, every curb felt like her domain. The third time was different. It wasn't about grass or trash. It was about control. I had ordered a few packages that week, mostly ordinary stuff. light bulbs, a replacement phone charger, and a new lock from my shed. Each one said delivered. Each one vanished. At first, I thought it was a delivery issue, but then one morning, I came home early from a job site and saw Karen standing by my porch. She was pretending to pick up a flyer from the ground, but her eyes were on the package sitting by the door. When she noticed me, she froze. Just making sure your deliveries are safe," she said quickly. "We've had theft in the area." "Oh, I appreciated that. Didn't realize we had porch patrol." She gave a tight smile and walked off. That same day, the package disappeared. I decided not to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I bought a small motion camera and mounted it just above my doorframe, hidden in the trim. If I was wrong, I'd know. If I was right, I'd have proof. The next evening, the notification pinged on my phone. Motion detected at front door. I opened the app. There she was. Karen, bright pink blazer and all, casually walking up the steps, glancing over her shoulder, then picking up my Amazon box like she owned it. She tucked it under her arm, straightened her jacket, and walked off. The timestamp said 2:14 p.m. Broad daylight. I didn't react. I didn't even report it right away. Instead, I downloaded the footage, backed it up, and waited, because if she had the nerve to do it once, she'd do it again. And she did. By the end of that week, 3 packages had gone missing, all caught on video. What she didn't know was that the last one she took wasn't just another online order. It was a delivery from a federal logistics center, and that box would change everything. By the time the 3rd package vanished, I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. Karen wasn't protecting the neighborhood, she was stealing. But what she didn't realize was that this time she hadn't just taken a box of gadgets or tools. She'd crossed a line that even the HOA couldn't cover for. That Friday morning, I received an internal notice from my federal contractor's office. A shipment had been sent to my home address. 3 sealed boxes containing secure documents for an upcoming project. Normally, I receive them directly through a government courier, but this time they were routed through Amazon's verified logistics channel due to a testing arrangement. Each box had a tracking ID, security seal, and a notice: confidential materials, property of the United States government. By noon, I got the delivery alert, but when I got home, my porch was empty again. I checked my camera footage immediately. There she was, bright pink blazer, sunglasses, and that usual fake smile plastered across her face. She looked around, hesitated, then reached for the first box. 1, 2, 3. She carried them off like they were her own groceries. That's when the weight of it hit me. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor crossing boundaries anymore. This was federal mail theft, and it involved classified materials. I made 2 calls that night. The first was to my supervisor to report a security breach in residential handling. The second was to a contact number for the United States Postal Inspection Service. I told them everything. Within hours, 2 agents reached out for details. One from the Postal Inspector's Office, another from Federal Logistics Security. They asked for the footage, timestamps, and delivery confirmation data. By the next morning, the investigation had already begun. Unmarked cars rolled through Maplewood Estates that weekend. I saw men in plain clothes walking their dogs, but they weren't locals. They were watching, quietly. They knew where she lived. Karen, on the other hand, was blissfully unaware. She strutted around the neighborhood like nothing had happened, telling neighbors that I was under review for property violations and that the HOA might have to intervene. She even sent me an email that Sunday. Ethan, I noticed several packages delivered to your house again. I took them for safekeeping. HOA policy prohibits unattended deliveries. Please be more responsible. That email was all the evidence the investigators needed to proceed. By Monday, I got a call confirming a search order. The packages were being traced, each one tagged with an internal serial number that could only be tracked by federal systems. The moment Karen scanned them into her local address, a silent flag went up in the federal database. They knew exactly where my missing boxes were. I was told to stay quiet and keep routine. The agents would handle the rest. So I did what I always did. Watered my lawn, waved to the neighbors, and pretended not to notice the black SUV parked down the street. 3 days later, they made their move. It happened in broad daylight, right when the mail truck stopped at the corner. Karen was outside trimming her roses when 2 agents approached her walkway. It was a bright Wednesday morning, the kind that makes Maplewood Estates look like a postcard. The lawns were trimmed, the sky was spotless, and the air smelled faintly of new paint and garden mulch. Everything looked perfect, right up until the black SUV stopped in front of Karen's house. 2 men stepped out. No uniforms, no flashing lights, just dark suits, badges, and the kind of calm that says, "We already know everything." Karen was in her front yard, snipping her rose bushes in that same bright pink blazer she seemed to wear for every power trip. She spotted the men approaching and immediately straightened up, flashing her usual smile. "Good morning. Are you here for the HOA? Because I already submitted the landscaping report." One of the agents held up his badge. "Ma'am, we are with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. We'd like to ask you a few questions about some missing mail and packages delivered to that address." Karen's voice shot up. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," the second agent said. "These packages were scanned as delivered to your property. They're registered under a federal contractor's secure tracking system." Karen's voice cracked into panic. "You don't understand. He leaves them out there all the time. I was going to give them back." The agent motioned toward the porch. "Then you won't mind if we take a look." They walked past her and on to the front steps. Sitting by the door were the same 3 boxes, unopened, security seals intact, with the words "Property of United States Government" printed clearly on the labels. The crowd went silent. Karen's face turned pale. She stammered, I didn't open them, I just—" The agent nodded. "You're being placed under federal investigation for mail theft and interference with government property." Karen started shouting about abuse of power and community rights, but no one stepped in. Even the HOA treasurer, her closest ally, stood on a sidewalk staring at the ground. From across the street, I watched the whole thing quietly, coffee in hand. I didn't need to say a word. I didn't need to. When the agents left, they carried the boxes with them and handed Karen a notice confirming an active federal case. Within a week, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Karen was suspended indefinitely from her position and later removed entirely after the news spread. The community newsletter came out the next month with a polite reminder. Residents are encouraged to respect mail boundaries and refrain from interfering with deliveries. No mention of her name, of course, but everyone knew.
As for me, my deliveries started arriving on time again. No more missing packages, no more passive-aggressive notes. Just quiet mornings, trimmed lawns, and peace. Funny how the woman who tried to control everyone else's mail ended up making the front page of her own HOA report under disciplinary actions. Justice served in pink and beige suburbia.